It's the right time for Right Time Radio. Welcome to Right Time Radio, Sue.
Oh, good morning. I'm already here, yes. Welcome, listeners.
She's here.
Welcome, listeners.
Physically, she's here. Mentally.
All right, Tay, don't start
Good
first
morning,
thing.
Tay. Good morning, Tay. How are you today, Tay?
Dandy.
Good.
Little
Dandy,
tired, but-
there's a good
yeah,
word.
I
dandy.
like that one.
Yeah.
Let's all be dandy today.
Let's be
Okay.
dandy today. I'm
right.
dapper.
You are dapper.
I am
All right, so we
dapper,
have Dandy
so-
and Dapper, so now we need to come up with a third one.
Demented.
Well, I didn't
No,
say
don't
that.
put that out there.
Wow. Okay.
Our guest
seemed to
today,
fit.
our guest today is actually not in the studio again, just like we did last week. We've got a call-in from an author who writes about Colorado, so that's why we're having her on the show. Christine Sterling, welcome to Right Time Radio.
Thank you so much. It's such a
There she
pleasure
is.
and an honor to be here with you guys today.
Good, thank you. I write with Christine, and so that's how I knew about her. And we first met when we wrote on a series called Silver Pines that I've talked about on here. Now, Silver Pines was set in Oregon, but and I'll give Christine's bio here in just a minute. But Christine has written quite a few books, actually, written about being located in Denver, Colorado, and I think maybe some others were in the Colorado area, and I'll let her tell you about that. But first, let me tell you, Christine Sterling is the author of over 30 romances and the creator of the wildly popular Pinkerton Matchmaker series and the Proxy Bride series. She is an author of multi-collaborations, including Cowboys and Angels, The Widows of Wildcat Ridge, and Silver Pines, where her book, Wanted Medicine Man, won the Best Historical Novel in 2018. She joined Sweet Promise Press as a historical romance author in 2019. That's where I got the 19. Writing for the Pioneer Brides of Rattlesnake Ridge. That sounds like a fun series just because of the name.
No, I don't like snakes.
She writes sweet and wholesome historical Western novels and published her first book in 2017. In addition to historical romance, she also writes contemporary romance and women's fiction under the name Christy Bortner. She lives in Pennsylvania with her husband, 4 dogs, and too many rescued barn cats to count. When she isn't in the writing cave, she spends her time playing fetch, dreaming up new plots, and weeding her half-acre organic herb garden. Her favorite things are a good cup of tea, a movie that makes you cry, and hearing from her readers. And if you would like to connect with her and get her newsletter, you can go to Right Time Radio's website, which is, tell them what it is, Miss Sue.
Righttimeradio.my-free.website.
Correct.
I did it.
You did it. And Christine is featured in the Spotlight section of our website right now, and I've got that link there. If you miss getting that, you can also email us at righttimeradio@gmail.com, and we'll be happy to share that with you. So welcome, Christine.
Thank you. Thank you.
Still there?
Right on in. Yeah, I'm still here. That was a mouthful of a bio. I appreciate you going through all of that.
Sure, yeah. I wanted to bring up first the Pinkerton Matchmaker series. I wrote in that series. I wrote, I think, 4 books in that series. But you say it's wildly popular. How many books got published in that series?
We actually had 81 books published by 22 different authors.
Wow.
And yeah, so we kind of did a round robin where, the authors went through once, did their first book, and then, everybody went through and did a second book, and then those who wanted to come and do a third, fourth, or fifth book, were invited to do that. And we ended up having people who some people published like 6 or 7 books in the series. So just the readers were gobbling them up, and they were so disappointed when the series ended. But, 81 books is a lot of books in a multi-author project.
That is a lot of books. Lynn had to step out for a second here.
She had an accident on the floor.
I know.
No, she just dropped her cup of water.
She had an
over, so-
accident on the floor, yes. So the nice thing about when you have the multi-author series, you have a little bit different voices, but you have the same idea going on. And then that leads the reader, when it's over, they want more, so they're looking for your next project. So help me out here.
Well, that's one of the great things about the author project is that you are collaborating with a bunch of different authors who bring different skill sets and different story ideas and different voices to the table. But as you mentioned, certainly in the Pinkerton Matchmaker and other multi-author projects I either I've participated in or I've led, there is a common theme going through all of the books. And in the Pinkerton Matchmaker, we set it up that a new office was being opened in Denver, Colorado, and that in order to get female agents, they ended up having to pair them with male partners. Well, back in the 1870s, if a woman was out being escorted by a male and both of them were single and there wasn't a chaperone, it could be considered scandalous. So we're like, how can we get around that? Well, let's just have them get married. So they, that was the common theme, is that they could get married for the duration of the case and then decide if they were going to remain married at the end of the case. And because it's romance, of course they are. Mm-hmm. So, but that's the same with all multi-author projects, is that there's usually a uniting theme that goes through the books. In the case of the Pinkerton Matchmakers, that was just the theme. It's the fact that they had to marry their agent to continue with the case. In other multi-author projects, there is a whole lot of interaction going on, where we work as a group and we actually build a world. This is what the town looks like. These are the characters. This is who owns the hotel. This is who owns the mercantile. This is who owns the livery. This is who is the school teacher in town. And all of those characters actually work into each other's books.
Yeah.
Oh, no, that's fascinating. I didn't know that.
Yeah,
I never thought about it.
We have to communicate a lot.
Yeah,
She's back.
And it really is.
Yes.
Cleaned up the mess.
I did.
But that's really where the importance of a continuity editor comes in, because a continuity editor is going to be able to read all of these books and go, this person was a brunette 2 books ago, and you've got her as a redhead.
Right.
Or her name is Jean, not Janet.
Yeah. Or Uncle Fred died 2 books ago. Now you've got him out here doing something.
Right. Or my particular favorite is I tend to change time when one of my heroines or one of my characters in my books ends up becoming pregnant. So either she's an elephant and it lasts 2 years, or she's a fast and it lasts 4 months.
Yes, exactly. And the continuity editor catches that, thank God.
Yeah.
And I watched a movie the other night that I literally sat there watching the movie going, did you not have a continuity editor? Did you not anyone pay attention to this situation? And this was a movie.
Because they were changing things up.
Changing things right and left.
Mm-hmm. Well, and when you have a series that goes on for 81 books, that's a lot of continuity to keep up with. And didn't it go, like, in the plot of the story, didn't it go over 3 or 4 years in our stories?
Yes. It started in 1871, and then it ended up, I guess 1873. We did have one person who wrote a book as things were closing down. She jumped ahead in the future, but that was just a one-off book.
Okay.
But for the most part, it lasted over about a 2-year period, those 81 books.
Okay.
Now, that was my question now, is when you have something like that, and you have that many people involved, and you have that intricate a story going on, how do you end a series?
We have.
Or do you end a series?
Well, we ended up ending the series just because we were on such a tight publishing schedule with this book. This was actually the first multi-author project book that I had personally led. Mm-hmm. And so, I had these big dreams. I wanted to get together these great authors. And I was like, we'll publish a book once a week. Well, you realize that when you publish a book once a week every Friday, that really doesn't leave you time for any other projects, because you get your book done and then you have to write your next book, because in that circle timeline, your next book's going to come out in 8 weeks or something.
Yeah.
So we ended up deciding as a group that it had just gone on long enough, and we didn't have any more stories to tell.
Mm-hmm.
That was the big thing. We didn't have any more stories to tell. And those authors that do decide that they want to come back, for example, I have two characters that I'm like, yep, I'll write a story about them, but I'm not going to do it right now. They will actually come back as companion tales.
Yeah.
In the next year or so. So it does leave, the series hasn't ended. It just means that we are not actively writing any more stories there.
And so I don't know if you're asking if we have like the last story is like concludes everything.
Yeah, exactly. Do you bring it? Everybody lived happily ever after, and
no,
Or the old died in the fire.
Well, yeah, that too. No,
turn off your mic, Tay.
each story is a standalone also. So each story, whoever's the main characters have a conclusion at the end as far as, and they lived happily ever after.
I'm nodding. Okay.
Yes, you are. We never hear her head rattle, and
not on the air anyway.
Yeah, it does. Having 81 books, everyone had some conclusion to their two main characters. But other characters would show up in their stories and be laced in with the story, because obviously if you worked for an agency, you might go to San Francisco, but you're going to come back to the home office at some point in time. So you're going to have interaction.
So you know your coworkers
with your
basically.
coworkers,
yeah.
Exactly. Or you might have a situation where you need help. So you would send back to your home office and they would send someone to help you. But the end of each individual story has a conclusion that leaves you satisfied with the story.
Okay.
So we did not have a wrap-up book. That was the last book.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know. Everybody lived happily. They closed the Denver office, and everybody lived happily ever after.
I think we left the office open, didn't we?
Well, we did, again, so that if there were any authors who decided down the road, any of the original participating authors, if they want to write another book, the door is always open.
Okay.
So we're going to need to take a commercial break, Christine, and we'll come back and talk about that some more just as soon as we hear from these commercials.
Hey, it's Jared Polis. I have a simple message. Don't believe these ridiculous attack ads about John Hickenlooper. They're just partisan nonsense. John Hickenlooper is one of the most decent public servants I've ever known. I've seen him give flood victims his personal cell number. I've seen him refuse to give up on expanding health coverage when no one else thought it was possible. John Hickenlooper is one of the most effective and compassionate leaders I know, and we need that right now. If you want to see Washington take action on climate change, fix our economy, and finally put an end to this pandemic, then you need to vote. It's Jared Polis, and I'm asking you to return your ballot and vote for my friend John Hickenlooper for U.S. Senate.
I'm John Hickenlooper, candidate for Senate, and I approve this message. Don't miss your chance to vote early. Drop off your ballot in person at a drop box by 7 p.m. on November 3rd. Thank you so much. Paid for by Hickenlooper for Colorado.
Attention. The Marine Corps League requests your presence to celebrate the 245th birthday of the United States Marine Corps. All are welcome. Saturday night, November the 7th, at the Abbey Event Center. Formal or military dress is suggested. Tickets are limited this year, so hurry and call 719-431-2687. That's 719-431-2687.
KRLN weather. Sunny, warm, and windy today. West winds gusting at 30 to 45 miles per hour this afternoon with a red flag fire danger warning today. The high around 83. Partly cloudy, cooler, and breezy tonight. The low near 33. Sunny and much cooler tomorrow. The high around 58. 44 was the overnight low. We had a high of 81 yesterday. Currently 71 degrees at the Weather Center.
Radio 1400.
We are back with Right Time Radio, and today Sue and I have a author from Pennsylvania, Christine Sterling. She is not in our studio. She has graciously called in for us because Pennsylvania is a long walk from Colorado. But she writes about stories that are set in Colorado, which is why we are considering her a local author.
There you go.
So we were talking about the Pinkerton Matchmaker series, which was an enormous success as far as a multi-author series. Christine, how do you decide when you come up with an idea for a story, whether to invite other authors in to write with you or to do the series by yourself?
Oh, that's an excellent question. Well, let's talk about how the ideas come about for these multi-author projects, because that's important too. And I'll specifically go back to the Pinkerton Matchmaker. When I was looking for an idea, we had just come off of Silver Pines, which was a great, successful series that George McVey had put together. And I was like, this multi-author project's fun. I get to work with authors I like. We're promoting each other. We do the marketing together. We're kind of learning as we go about, a topic or a town or something. So I just really loved the energy of the multi-author project. So when I was looking for one to maybe put together, I started doing some research. And at the time, there was a show based out of Canada called The Pinkertons, which followed the exploits of Kate Warren and Will Pinkerton. And I was like, this is kind of cool. So I said, I wonder if there are any Pinkerton books out on Amazon, because I just wanted to read them. And I only came up with like a handful of them. And I happened to write in the sweet and wholesome category, and a lot of these books were in the spicy category. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm not going to be reading that. So I said, why don't I write a series about that, about the Pinkertons? And so I called in two of my friends from Silver Pines, and we started talking, and then we realized that, this could be bigger than just the three of us, and having to release a book every month or every 2 weeks, depending upon what our writing schedule was. I mean, again, we talk about this round robin type of thing where, you go authors 1 through 8 and then 1 through 8 again, and everybody does a circle. Well, when you have 3 people, it was like we'd be producing a book every 6 weeks, and that's pretty heavy to do. So after some discussion, we said, well, why don't we open it up? And so what I specifically looked for when I had put the call out for people was, do they write in the same genre? Do they have a following already? You can have 1 or 2 people that are newbies, but they're literally just getting their writing boots on. They're building their following. They don't have a huge following already. So we wanted people that had readers, had a good reader base, and would they advertise? Would they promote all of the books? Because that's not fair either. If you've got somebody who's doing all the promotion and the other 5 or 6 people are just reaping the benefit of it, we really wanted something that was level playing field. So those were really my criteria for finding authors. And we found some amazing authors. I mean, we found authors in England. We've got authors in Australia. We found, authors all over the United States. So it certainly expanded my network as an author, because I made some really good friends doing this multi-author project. But yeah, that's how we come about with who is going to participate, and how I decide whether I'm going to do it as a multi-author project or whether I'm going to do it as a solo series is, what is the topic? And for example, in the Pinkerton Matchmaker, it made sense to do it as a multi-author project. In our upcoming book, The Blizzard Brides, it made sense to do it as a multi-author project because, one, I as a solo author can't write all of those books. Now, in the Pinkerton Matchmaker, I actually identified a family. When you talk about sub-characters, and sometimes as an author, say, Lynn, I'm going to pick on you for a second. You've got 4 books in a series. Chances are you're going to have characters in book 1 of yours that are going to show up in book 2, 3, and 4.
Right.
So you end up building almost like your own little world inside the bigger world. And so I had built this family called the Chapmans, based upon the main female character who appears in most of the Pinkerton Matchmaker books, Mary Ann Chapman. And I was just intrigued by her family, and I said, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and write that story. But at that point, because she was my character and it was my character's family, it made more sense for me to do that as a solo, as opposed to saying, hey, you know what, I want to invite everybody out and you know, everybody to join this series, because I wanted creative control over that family and those characters. So that's really what it boils down to, is how much creative control do you want as an organizer of a series? And are you willing to have, you know, people maybe take your character, your main character, perhaps a little bit differently than how you intended? So that's what it comes down. Did that answer your question?
It did.
It did. And, you know, something that I heard right off the bat was you saw a TV program that interested you.
Yes.
And apparently I can't talk this morning. I'm sorry, Christine. And you checked it out. You didn't find books that you liked. And so you made the decision to write books. And that's on that subject. And that's a perfect example of getting an idea and running with it.
Yeah, that's what we do.
Absolutely. Yep. I tell you what, I think if anybody was in my head, they'd be scared. I've got all these ideas going around.
Yeah, I totally understand that, actually.
And were we on the air when you were explaining the whole thing to me about the different people?
That was downstairs.
Do you want to talk about the different people and how they work within the series?
I think we touched on it now that you mentioned that. Yeah, for example, let's use Pinkerton as an example. We had, and you're going to have to help me with some of the names because it's been a day or two since I've written in Pinkerton, but we had a main guy who was Archie Graham, right? Archie Gordon. Yeah.
Gordon.
And he had a woman that he hired, he thought, as a housekeeper, and her name was Mary Ann Chapman. Mary Ann became his right arm, kind of like what you'd think of an executive assistant. She just really built her position from being a housekeeper to
being indispensable.
Being indispensable, and to the point of actually helping him figure out partners, you know, people that needed to work on certain cases and whether or not to take cases. I mean, it was huge. And then they had a housekeeper named Pearl. So almost everybody in their books had Archie and Mary Ann and Pearl somewhere in their books. So we had to be very true to the character. Christine is a person of my own heart in that she likes spreadsheets. I love you for that, Christine. So we did that. We made spreadsheets that showed our characters, showed the characteristic of the character, you know, how tall they were, what they look like.
You were saying that like they couldn't be a brunette in the first book, and then 2 books later somebody writes a redhead.
Exactly. And Pearl was actually an albino. So she was very pale and very light-haired and all that stuff. So we had to make sure she stayed that way, and we didn't make her a brunette somewhere down the road. So, Mary Ann was a redhead. So she had that flaring temper and just fun stuff. She was a fun character.
And then, Christine, you spoke as the organizer. I don't understand any of this. So you as the organizer, are responsible for me? I don't know what it was. Sorry, Christine. There's always a little bit of weirdness going on in here.
No, not a little bit. It's actually quite a bit.
I fit right in.
Christine, I'm sorry. My question is, when you have all these books in a series and all these different people writing, do you have a separate continuity editor? Okay, so Lynn's yeah.
One person reads all 81 books, and her name's Amy. And she's the one who keeps that in her head. And does Amy go to a spreadsheet too?
I honestly don't know what her process is. We've kind of streamlined it in that for the next upcoming series. Pinkerton was a new series for me. It was my first time organizing, and believe me, I learned a lot of lessons doing it.
Oh, yeah.
So now we have this master spreadsheet that Amy refers to for everything.
Yeah.
Just absolutely everything, down to like moles on people's faces, that sort of thing, and who's married to whom, and Yep, absolutely. And so I do know that in the current series that she's doing continuity for, she refers to that spreadsheet for everything. And I'm sure that she has her own way of keeping notes. as well.
Besides the fact that her brain can just retain a lot of it. Because that's what it seems
amazes
like
me.
to me. Yeah, I know. She is amazing. We're going to break for another commercial, and we'll be back with more very interesting stuff with Christine, and right after this message.
Medicare open enrollment is happening October 15th through December 7th. Now, this is the only time of the year that all people with Medicare can see what new benefits are offered. Let the professionals at Palace Drug Store review your current plan with you. On average, people can save at least $1,100 per year by taking advantage of the new benefits. Your current plan might not be your best plan. And don't forget, you can also get your flu shot this season at Palace Drug Store or in the comfort of your car. Stop in or visit ReamPalaceDrug.com.
People make all kinds of mistakes with life insurance, like having some coverage but not enough to keep your family in the house, or only having life insurance through work and then losing your job. Want to avoid those mistakes? Get an Allstate agent. They can help you get the coverage your family needs at an affordable price. Are you in good hands?
Call Canyon City Allstate agent Trent Rundell today and ask for a complimentary life insurance review. 275-5762. Life insurance is offered by Allstate Life Insurance Company, Northbrook, Illinois, and Lincoln Benefit Life Company, Lincoln, Nebraska.
It was the 1970s, and 9 out of 10 people listen to the radio at least once every week. Today, you know what that statistic is? According to Nielsen, 9 out of 10 people listen to the radio every week. Surprise! Radio is full of surprises. Here's another one. Millennials make up the largest group of radio listeners in Colorado. Surprise! Reach 9 out of 10 people with your message on radio. You'll be pleasantly surprised. Brought to you by the Colorado Broadcasters Association and this station.
We're back with Right Time Radio, and our guest is Christine Sterling. She is calling in from Pennsylvania for us, but she does write about Colorado. Welcome back, Christine. Still there?
Thank you so much.
There's a delay.
I'm here. Still here.
All right, we are talking about writing in multi-author series or publishing a series by yourself. And, you know, it just kind of leads us to the question, because Right Time Radio is here to really to help authors that are local that can hear our station and those who listen to us on our website, help them with questions they might have. And one of those questions could be, if I wanted to get on a multi-author series, is there a way for me to find out that there's some multi-author series that I could be involved in? How would they do that, Christine?
How do you be the newbie?
But, you know what, that's a great question. The first thing that I'm going to say is, as a newbie, really understand who you are writing to. Who is your target reader, and what type of stories do they want? And then find authors in that genre who have those same kind of guidelines or values in their books, and then start connecting with them and say, and you can reach out and say, hey, you know what, I've got this idea. Make sure you've got an idea.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking about, getting a couple of authors together to perhaps write this. And it happens at anthologies all the time, where you've got a theme and you've got 10 authors that write books and then they go into an anthology and publish them as a group. So a multi-author project is basically a really large anthology because you're writing novellas or novels with that common theme and everybody's writing a different story.
Right. They're just separate.
The other thing that the other thing I highly recommend is to get involved in some networking. And I happen to run an Authors Map Connection group on Facebook. So if you go to Facebook and just search for Authors MAP Connections, up will come the Facebook group and, ask to join. We specifically deal with sweet and wholesome historical and contemporary. So, there's no cursing, no steaminess, no, not even really edgy type of stuff in that group. And so if that happens to be what you're writing, then come and join us. And, an author will put in there, say, hey, I've got this project for X. We're actually booking into 2022 now. And it's going to be, and this is what the theme is. This is what the requirements are word count wise. This is the cost for cover, for continuity editor. People are involved, if they have do their own editing, how the formatting goes. This is all the details, and if you're interested, contact the coordinator of that series.
Mm-hmm.
So since that map group has been put together, I have seen, and it's only been about a year, I have truly seen probably 18 to 20 new multi-author projects come across.
Yeah, cool.
And it's great because, these groups, sometimes it's a new coordinator, sometimes it's a coordinator that has coordinated a couple of maps, but they're always willing to take a chance on a new author, one or two new authors, which has been wonderful. I mean, it's a door opener. It's a game changer for a lot of authors getting
career, literally.
Well, and it is. If you're, I've been writing for many years. I haven't done a book or anything, but I do have a drawer full of rejection slips. And, this sounds like a whole new world to me.
Yeah, because we self-publish these. So, as long as the leader of the map... Is there any possibility that the leader of a map would ask for some of your writing if they didn't know you at all, Christine?
That's a great question. If I'm not familiar with an author, usually what I like to do is see that they've published one book. Because if they've published one book, that tells me that they can meet a deadline and that they have completed something. Because I will be honest, as a new writer, and I've been writing for years and years, I had a lot of half-finished manuscripts. And it wasn't until my feet were held to the fire and I had to get a deadline done, which was for Wanted Medicine Man. I was like, oh, crap, I got to actually finish the book. I had finished one, published it, and waited a couple months before I did my other one. But I'm like, I've got a deadline because other people are relying on me. So I always look for... have they completed at least one book? And it doesn't necessarily have to be in the genre that they're going to be writing in with me, but have they completed something? And then if the book's on Amazon, I download the book and read it. So you can really get a feel for somebody's writing style, for their voice. So if you have a brand new author who hasn't published a book, then usually I will say, hey, can you send me a writing sample of something that you have, just so that I can see your voice or hear your voice as I'm reading it. The other thing that I do, and this is very strategic when you are either organizing a map or participating in a map, is you look at the placement order. You always want to start with an author that is really strong, and you want to finish with an author that's really strong on the round. And so somebody who is a newer author, it's better if they're in the middle because, they're kind of protected on one side and protected on the other side in terms of, if the readers are reading and then they get to that book and they're like, okay, well, I don't know who Jane Smith is, but I'm going to read the book.
But I like the series. Yeah. I love that idea.
And there are anal retentive people who will read every single one of the, because it is a series. They will read
You're
every
looking
single
at one right now.
I know.
You're looking at one, yes.
Yeah, and they'll even, I've had people tell me I didn't particularly care for this one, but I can't not read one in the series, so I'll read them anyway. But honestly, it really helps a new author to get her name out there and get some readers. So, is there anything else you wanted to say?
But not only that, it gives the new author a chance. Like if you're, again, writing in this world that somebody else has created and this theme that somebody else has created, and say you're book 5, it gives you a chance to read at least book 1, 2, and 3 before you get your book, finished. And so, because, you've got to go through the editing process usually while book 4 is going out. So that's really important too, because you're going to learn about world building and you're going to learn about character development. And that can apply to any genre. I happen to write in the historical romance market as well as women's fiction, and I'm moving into a new genre next year. But world building is very common in science fiction novels. You have to have a huge world. And things are very culture-centric, we'll say, between all the alien species. So you've got to know all those details. And working in a map is going to teach you skills that it would take you longer to learn on your own.
True.
Because you're going to have a group of authors who are perhaps more experienced than you are guiding you through the process. And then guiding you through, this is how you're going to get your book uploaded on Amazon. This is how you're going to get your keywords. This is what needs to go into your blurb or your description. and then, this is what we recommend you put in your newsletter when you send your newsletter out. Or in my case, when I had first started, I didn't have a newsletter, and I kind of resisted doing a newsletter because I'm like, oh my gosh, that's one more thing I have to manage. But I did a lot of posting on social media.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I do have a newsletter now, but I did a lot of posting on social media, and that was the way that I started building my audience. And and the authors, specifically in the Silver Pines series, knew I did not have a newsletter going in, but they also knew that I promoted a lot. I promoted in a bunch of different ways. So, so it's just a great opportunity for a new author to kind of get involved and really dive into what's going on in the indie author community and networking with some great authors who end up becoming such dear friends.
Right.
I met some of my best friends through these multi-author projects.
It sounds like a good sense of security and confidence that, as a newbie, you can come in and people will take care of you.
Yeah.
And I love the idea. I haven't written anything, but
I'm encouraging her to, though.
Well, I have to find a genre.
You do.
Because I read a lot of fantasy. I do not read historical romance unless it's, yours. But actually, I do read romance because I read The Amish Brides. So I do read a lot of different things. I'm into the fantasy right now, but I want to write, and I want my voice to be heard. And I know that we have listeners, too, that are out there, and they're thinking, I want my voice to be heard. We will help you.
Yeah, there is help. There is help. And
absolutely, and this is certainly a ministry and a way to give back to the author community. Because, somebody took a chance on me, didn't know me from Adam, and took a chance on me to participate in a series. And I am so grateful for that opportunity. And it was such a blessing in my life and in my family's life that, that has ended up becoming the way that I pay back to the author community, is to help newer authors, start building their following. Now, on the other hand, I'll say, if you're doing maps for 5 years, you really do need to look at doing some of your own work as well, because that's where you're really going to end up building your following. If, I know this person from a map, but oh my gosh, he just released a 6-book series and I need to go and devour every single one of them, because, authors or readers are really going to connect with your voice.
So don't get stuck in the security of don't get stuck in the security of a multi-author project. Yeah.
Right. Well, and I've been in multi-author projects that have tanked. Somebody had a good idea, but the sales just weren't there. And that's okay too, because you still have a book. You still have something on your backlist.
Right. That's absolutely true.
You're just absolutely. So you're just building, but the security really comes into the relationships that you make through these multi-author projects. And there's a saying that a rising tide lifts all ships.
Right.
So you've got this tide of other authors that are lifting up everybody. So we're kind of like this whole flotilla going around together.
I like that picture.
But but it's true, and we really do support each other. And so I certainly know that when, for example, Lynn had a solo series recently.
Yeah.
Better believe I promoted that.
Yes, thank you.
Even though I'm not part of that series, it is a solo series to her. I'm going to promote her because we had that relationship from the maps that we had done previously.
And she also has a recent solo series that's a kickoff from the Pinkertons, because it was Mary Ann Chapman's family. She had several brothers and several sisters. And so she's doing a series right now. In fact, I'm in the middle of reading book number 4 of that family. And then it's going to kick off a series. It's going to be an associated family that was in that series. So one thing leads to another, and it just... You can't stop writing. You just can't.
Now, here's a question. So could an author take, and we're going to have to go to commercial, but can you think about this, Christine? Can an author take one of your characters and write the story of that character? And
we'll answer that after these commercials.
We'll answer that after these commercials.
Aftermath is here! Canyon City is home to one of the top-rated haunts in all of Colorado. Aftermath.
So scary it'll bring you to your knees.
Aftermath is open on the 24th, 30th, and 31st. The ticket booth is open from 7 to 10:30 by the dog park in Canyon City.
Tickets are $20. Bring all your friends.
Proceeds benefit Canyon City Recreation and Park District programs. For more information, go to ccrec.org.
Royal Gorge Radio, along with these local businesses, want to give you free money.
Visit one of these Money Day store locations. In the Alta store in Fremont County, High Country Bank, 150 Reynolds Avenue, Kaleidoscope Inspiration, 602 Main Street, Coyote Coffee Den, Highway 115 Penrose, and Waterhole number 1, 1532 Elm Avenue.
Be present at your favorite Money Day location for Money Day. Same time, 2:30, and same channels, AM 1400 Carolyn and 104.5 Star Country.
And if you're a business in the Fremont or Pueblo County area and would like to be a part of our Money Day celebration, just give us a call, 275-7488.
Hey y'all, it's Chelsea Lynn. Join Annalie and myself every Tuesday afternoon at 2:30 at your favorite Money Day location for your chance to win some free cash.
So visit a Money Day store location, register, be present at a Money Day store location every Tuesday afternoon, listen for your name, hear your name, call back, and win. It's that easy.
Don't forget to like us on Facebook for the latest Money Day details.
KRLN weather, sunny, warm, and windy today. West winds gusting at 30 to 45 with a red flag fire danger warning. High today around 83. Partly cloudy, cooler, and breezy tonight, the low near 33. Sunny, much cooler tomorrow, the high around 58. 81 degrees our high yesterday. Currently at the Weather Center, 74 degrees.
Radio 1400, KRLN.
We are back with Right Time Radio, and we left you with a question. And you want to ask the question one more time, and then we'll let Christine answer it.
I was wondering if an author had a character in a series that I loved, and I had a story idea for that character, and I used Lynn's Jacob,
from Sons of Honor
book from Sons of Honor. What if I loved Jacob, and I had a great story idea, and I wanted to write this story and publish it?
So what do they do, Christine?
She's laughing. The first thing I do is recommend that Lynn gets a lawyer.
Yeah.
Really what you're doing is there's two streams of thought. You cannot take a character that belongs to somebody else and write a story about it and publish it under your own name, using that character and the town and the world and everything else that Lynn created. That is a copyright infringement. There's just no way getting around it. There is what's called like almost a common use type of license, these are very popular stories. The Jane Austen Pride and Prejudice, almost like fan fiction, where they take that and it specifically says this is a Jane Austen Pride and Prejudice retelling. It's a retelling of the story, or it is something that's similar to it. And Lynn, I'm struggling for the words here. I actually don't remember what it's called.
My thought was fanfic, the fan fiction where you're a fan of a story like Harry Potter or Sons of Honor or your Chapman series, and so you write a fanfic. I told Sue during the break that you might could legally do it, but if you want to be my friend, you better talk to me about it first.
Well, so the answer then that, and you can extrapolate on this, but the answer that Lynn was giving me during the break is that you can approach the author and say, I have this idea. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I actually had people approach me regarding the Pinkerton Matchmaker series. I had several people, and I did have somebody who sent me a full manuscript and said, I really want this published as a Pinkerton Matchmaker story. And, so that, I was very flattered. I was so flattered that somebody took the time to write a story and come out with a plot and everything else. But this was a brand new writer. And so, there's a lot of coaching and grooming that goes into helping a brand new writer. And I even said, this can be published as a fan fiction, but you specifically have to say this is a fan fiction book, that it is not an authorized portion of the series or the world that I've created. And So I kind of feel the same way. If somebody was to take, for example, one of my Chapman characters, well, my main characters already have romances and everything else. But what if they're like, oh my gosh, I love this cowboy that came on, and same thing as Lynn. I would really like them to reach out to me. But as an author, me personally, I am very protective of the characters that I create.
Oh, yes.
Because who knows, I might want to write a story about that character.
These are
later on down the
mine.
road.
And we have those ideas float. We call them plot bunnies.
Yep.
Yeah. We have those ideas floating around. We may not have expressed them. So then when you come to me and say, hey, I want to write this story about Jacob, I'd be like, I already had one planned, so let's pick another character. But
it is possible. And like Christine said, it's flattering.
Very.
But I'm trying to speak as the naive newbie.
Yeah.
It is possible. It's just you got to make sure you do it right.
Well, and communication is
communication.
Key.
Yes.
Very.
Now, going back, there's also when you talk about plots and characters and things like that. When I always learned there were 5 characters in any book. You had your hero, you had your heroine, you had your antagonist, you had another type of villain or conflict character. It could be the best friend. It could be a
Goofy
buddy,
sidekick.
and then you had comic relief. Yeah, so the kooky sidekick, and then you had comic relief. So if you end up finding a character where you're like, you know what, I really resonate with that character that such and such has wrote, what is it about that character that resonates with you? Because you can write a character that is similar in your own town, change the name, and if it fits one of those 5 things, then you know what, I really resonated with this story. And that's actually how most stories come about. You've got stories that were in the traditional publishing realm where someone's like, you know what, I really like this story and the way that this was written, and I'm not plagiarizing it because I'm going to take it and I'm going to make it my own. But I like the concept. I just like the concept of what happens here. Women's fiction. You look at women's Hallmark plots. This is the perfect one. Hallmark plots. What is in every single Hallmark
single
movie
Hallmark
at Christmas time?
Yes.
Sweet.
Every single Hallmark plot follows the same.
Yeah. And ideas are not copyrighted. So you cannot copyright an idea. So you can take an idea and make it your own, and you're not violating anything. Still, if I was taking an idea, which I have actually done this, if I was taking an idea that I got from a book I read that Christine wrote, I would talk to her and say, hey, I've got this idea. Would you have any problem with me doing this? And she would give me her blessings, and she has done so.
Because you said, if I came to you and said, I want to write something about Jacob, I have this idea, and you could very possibly say, I already had the idea, and I'm ready to write it. Yeah.
So, you don't want to step on toes.
No. No. I want to become a successful author.
You don't want to alienate anybody else in the author community. But this is what I've done. When people have talked to me and said, hey, you know what, I really like this, I've got this idea. If I have already carved out that idea or that next series based upon my world, I'll spend an hour with somebody saying, well, let's plot. Let's plot so it's your own.
Yeah.
And so we kind of talk through what is it that they want, and then we find ways to twist it. So that way, again, they have one of these 5 characters that they resonated with. I think I read somewhere that there's only like 7 different plots in the entire world, and all books are based off of these different
I've heard
plots.
that too, right.
Right.
And
so
that's
let's talk about...
There's nothing new under the sun.
Correct. Yeah. So let's talk about how to make this story unique to you as a writer.
And see, I appreciate that you would say, I will take the time to help.
Christine will. There are authors who might not, but the ones that I associate with generally will. So you pick and choose your friends.
In the publishing world that I was trying to get into, all you get is a letter saying we love the idea, but so this is fascinating to me. I love this.
And I know people in the fantasy genre, so I can connect you. And that's the same for any author. If you've got ideas, but you want to write in some other genre that you don't hear Sue and I talk about, I probably know somebody that'll know somebody that I can get you in contact with.
Please talk to us,
email
local
us.
people.
Yeah. We've got about less than 5 minutes, actually, Christine, but I wanted to talk about how do we build our readers group? I mean, if I just sit down and put out a newsletter, nobody's going to get it. I like Facebook. I feel like it really reaches a lot of people, and a lot of people go to Facebook to find authors. I know there's Instagram, Twitter, innumerable places. But let's talk about, Christine, let's talk about Chat, Sip, and Read.
I love CSR.
Mm-hmm.
CSR is kind of like my brainchild, and it flows through all of my branding. It's really chatting about what's going on in your life. Sipping, which refers to food. You know, do we have recipes that we want to share?
Mm-hmm.
I love to eat. I'm very food-centric. So, I mean, if you bring me food, I'm your best friend for life.
Yeah.
And then what are we reading?
We're like a
and then
stray
what are we
dog,
reading?
Actually. It's called Chat, Sip, and Read, and it is on Facebook. So if you go to Facebook and put in chat, sip, and read, it doesn't matter. If you put chat, sip, read, no punctuation or anything, you'll still
I'm trying
get
to write it down.
Yeah. So it's a group on Facebook. Christine made it, shall we say. She invited some of us, and I'm one of the admins on it. So George is on there, several authors anyway. And like she said, it's broadened. She actually put out, I don't know if you have time to talk about that, but she actually put out a survey and asked people what they wanted from the group. And we got some really interesting responses, and it helped us know what to keep, what to throw away. It's a place to announce that you've got books, but it's also a place to say, my son just got tested for COVID and I'm scared, and can you pray with me? And, it's got a lot of needs met, I feel like. Would you agree, Christine?
I totally agree. And if somebody wants to find out about the survey results and everything, be sure to join the group. And there is a book chat that happened 2 weeks ago. Every Sunday, Lynn and another author get together, and they actually talk about what's going on in the marketplace in terms of books, and they interview a third author every week. Sometimes they've got something else going on. But I was interviewed 2 weeks ago, and we did talk about the survey results. So you can find those in Chat, Sip, and Read. And I'll make a point of popping that video up to the top.
Cool. Good. Awesome. Yeah, that's called Book Chat Live. And it is in Chat, Sip, and Read. So you have to be a member of Chat, Sip, and Read. And we do that every Sunday at 2 o'clock Colorado time. What is that, 4 o'clock your time?
Yeah.
Yes.
Christine? Yeah. I have to think forward and backwards and where you are and everything. Listen, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show. It's noon for you now, so you need to go have lunch.
It was nice to meet you.
It was lovely meeting you guys. Thank you so much for allowing me to come and spend a little bit of time in the world. I so appreciate it.
Good. Love having you on, Christine. We may have you back another time.
That would be one.
All right, everybody out there in Radio Land, have a wonderful, wonderful day. And we will talk to you next Wednesday at 9 o'clock.
I don't have enough music, so y'all going to have to wing it for another minute.
Talking.
So
come on, what do you have to say? What do you got
Come on, you guys are writers.
Well, the whole newbie author thing.
Yeah.
I want to write, but I write by assignment, it seems.
Yeah.
I had a muse. I wrote a story I want to show you, but it's kind of dark.
Okay.
And this whole Lynn, the experienced author, and me, the newbie.
Yeah.
Well,
makes a
gotta
great
learn
show.
somewhere.
And Tay, the comic relief.
Yeah,
yes,
absolutely.
he's our hero and our comic relief.
See, now if I wouldn't have said anything, we'd be sitting twiddling our thumbs for a minute.
And I want every time to remind local authors, if you are listening, if you know someone who writes, please get in touch with us.
Yes.
There we go. Now you've said enough.
Now we're out.
Now it's time to be quiet.
Email.com.